Good evening, everyone. I hope most people are here. We won't wait any longer. I think most of you are here. Welcome to this wonderful event to celebrate International Women's Day. My name is Nikki and I run the gallery at the North Wall. This event is hosted by the North Wall and the Oxford International Women's Festival. As you know, International Women's Day was on Monday, but the Oxford International Women's Festival continues to host events through this week. So please check out their website to see what they're doing both tomorrow and Friday evening. Their theme for this year's festival is Women's Creativity. We are celebrating tonight the creativity and stories of two incredible women, Diana Forster and Rana Ibrahim. Before I let them start their discussion, just a few housekeeping points if you've only just joined. They will be in discussion until 8 o'clock, and then we'll take a quick break for you to write in with your questions into the Q&A box. Please make sure that if you'd like to be part of the end bit, which is the informal discussion where you can ask them direct questions, please do write in the Q&A box that you'd like to do that, be unmuted and have your cameras off. But for most people, just please remain with us for the 15 minutes of Q&A, and I will choose as many questions as I can to put to our speakers. So without any further delay, I introduce Rana and Diana.
Hello, I'm Diana Forster, and I'm an artist living just outside Oxford. And I studied for a degree in contemporary fine art at Oxford Brookes University after a career in educational publishing.
Hello everyone, happy International Women's Day to everyone. I'm Rana Ibrahim. I'm from Iraq. I'm an artist from Iraq. I'm based in Oxford. Also I'm an archaeologist, and I finished my museum study master degree in Newcastle University.
Rana, I think you have first-hand experience of war. I think from when you were a small child in Iraq.
Oh yes, that's true. Yeah, it's I started from the beginning of my life. Childhood is live with the war in Iraq. From the first war in with Iran, unfortunately in 1980 for 8 years, and then after that is like maybe a few months without war, and then come back with the next war with the not war, actually invasion with the Kuwait, and then 10 years under restriction with everyone, war against the world actually. So yeah, unfortunately I left Iraq in 2000, so all my 28 years is like starting with war. Yeah, and live this. Yeah. And what about you? What?
Well, I don't have first-hand experience of war, but of course my mother did. My mother certainly did, because she was born in Eastern Poland, and she lived there until she was 16, when the Stalin's troops invaded Eastern Poland, when Hitler's troops invaded Western Poland. And this map shows the extraordinary extraordinary journey that she then made when Stalin's troops invaded. They deported lots of Polish families to a labor camp in Siberia, and then they made this extraordinary journey down through Central Asia to Uzbekistan, across the Caspian Sea into Iran. And then round to Karachi, and then down to Africa, where they sat out the war. So it was, yes, they had an incredible life for those two years traveling. But if we go back to the start of the journey, the labor camp, Here You Shall Live, I made a poster of in the style of the Russian Revolution propaganda posters, which showed, gave a flavor of being incarcerated in a labor camp. because they were told when they arrived, well, here you shall live, and he who does not work does not eat. And that was the start of 18 months of a very, very harsh regime in this labor camp. And they were released eventually when Stalin joined the Allies, and they had to then travel all the way down to Uzbekistan and across to Iran, where they were finally free, and the British Army helped them. But it was what to do with the women and children. The men were going to form the Second Polish Corps and fight with the British because the war was still on. But Churchill said that the women and children could sit out the war in the British colonies all the way down the east coast of Africa. So there were camps set up in Tanganyika, as it was then, Tanzania and Uganda. And my mother was in the largest of these camps in Tanganyika, in Tengeru. There's a picture, I think, of the refugee camp in Tanganyika. Yes, I made this as a poster as well, like the 1930s travel posters. But the refugee camp was actually a rather nice place to live, because the British employed African workers to build these camps, just rows and rows of mud huts, traditional mud huts. But the Polish people in these camps were mainly, they had come from the land. My grandfather owned a small patch of land. They were farmers, small-scale farmers. So these refugees in the camps set about establishing gardens and a farm. They had a farm there as well. So the time spent in the refugee camp at the end of the journey wasn't actually bad. The camp, yes, it's nothing like the camps you see on the television these days that Rana has had more to do with than I have. Those tented camps, they look so miserable and sad. That's a completely different story.
Yes, I would like just to share the map of Iraq, which is for people who doesn't know where I'm from. So this is actually a map. It's from the exhibition just recently finished, and this is the map of Iraq, the exhibition called Of Ordinary Things. And it's our life, it's my life. So it's everything I did for this exhibition with a brilliant team and women to support. It's all my ordinary life and them. It's in this map. So there is a close look. So this map is a part of the exhibition. It's not really finished. If I have the close look, and the idea is to put everyone details in this map, and that whatever they like to choose, it's part of our life in Iraq before we traveled. So for me, I traveled in 2000. I thought I'm going for like 1 year and go back to Iraq, but from 2000 until 2018, I managed to go. So it's really it's a little bit different, Diana, than your mother. She traveled like to escape the war and things, and she experienced a loss of hard time during the war. We did have the hard time inside Iraq as well as outside, but the journey is a little bit different. So like when I left Iraq, I left by plane. But not everyone's same as me. So not everyone who left war left like similar like my way, but there is people similar your mother way. So there is a loss of similarity until now, I'm afraid, because of the war. Yes.
Yes, and 60 years separates my mother's experience from the experience of Iraqis, and they, 60 years ago this happened, and here we are 60 years later, and it's still the same. people still being forced to leave their homes, going to uncertain futures, because I think that was one of the really terrible things when my mother and the family were forced from their little farm, pushed onto trains, into cattle trucks on trains. They didn't know where they were going. It was just terrifying. And it must be the same for people in Iraq and the Middle Eastern countries now having to flee. They don't know what they're going to, they don't know what their future is going to be. You just hope.
Yeah, absolutely, Diana. Sorry, interrupting you, but I'm just responding to your question. Actually, it's true, because when you leave, you think you're coming back. So it's when the war started in 2003, I couldn't. That's it. It's the end story of my ordinary things in Iraq. So it's like a journey for a big question mark. You will see my art as well. And that's why I started doing art, actually, and not just by myself. Yeah, so when did you start making your art?
I started, well, for most of my life, I've drawn, and I've gone to art classes, but I decided to study science at school, and if you chose science, you couldn't do art. So I studied botany at university the first time round, and but yes, I never left my art behind. But when I was approaching retirement, I thought it was a chance to study art seriously at last. So I got a place at Oxford Brookes University and studied contemporary fine art there. And we were expected to make quite large projects there as part of the course. And when I was thinking about what I would do, I was thinking about my mother's story. It's not a very well-known story in this country, and I decided I'd like to make artwork about it, so that it became better known, but also, you know, for the people, the Polish people that went through that, because there was still a lot alive then. I'm afraid anyone who went through that experience is now in their 90s, perhaps. The smaller children will be in their late 80s. But yes, I'm afraid it's a generation that's dying now. But yes, when I was thinking about one of these big projects to do at Oxford Brookes, I remember a story that my mother told me when we were at home. I was still at school, and I went into the kitchen one day and she was nibbling a cabbage leaf and she was laughing. And I asked her what she was doing, and she said, well, when we were in the labor camp, we were starving, we didn't have enough to eat, but the guards had a garden and they grew cabbages in the garden. And we would crawl on our hands and knees at night and nibble the cabbage leaves. And in the morning, the guards just thought it was animal damage. Rabbits had been nibbling the cabbage leaves. So the children never got punished. So I thought that I would make a cabbage patch, and I worked out how to do this. I worked out a way of doing it. I bought some Savoy cabbages and nibbled the leaves like my mother would have done. I think in the picture you can see the nibbled edges. And I bought this plastic material that you could roll out with a rolling pin, and stretched it over the cabbage leaves and pressed it on to pick up the impressions of the leaves and also around the nibbles. And then I got some spent brass cartridge cases and created the cabbage patch. And then I was astonished at how, when I showed it, how moved people were by this. And then I realized that actually what I wanted to do was to make work that invited people in. So it's about war and it's about a terrible time, but I haven't used traumatic images. I tried to make it beautiful, So people are drawn to it and they appreciate it. But then they read the wall text and the story slowly unfolds. But they've been given space to think about it and to use their imaginations about the whole situation. I really try to get away from images of war that traumatize people. You know, we see them on the television all the time, pictures of devastation and unfortunately of dead people, dead bodies, and we're turned off. We can't look at them anymore, and so we turn away. We don't engage. Actually, we can become numb to it, which of course we should never do. So I'm really interested in my work now of trying to find ways of making work which really, yes, people can spend time with. That's why I quite like installations, because you can almost step into an installation and be part of it, and use your imagination about the whole situation. But I think you're the same, Rana. Your work doesn't use traumatic images of war at all, but you hide things in your work.
Yeah, that's true. I'm, you know, the one behind me is my artwork as well as a collage artwork. But the one I want to, I agree with you actually, and we have a similarity in this case, because my zigzag book, for instance, is like a journey. It's a book of my journey, my story, and I'm trying to highlight with highlights images and memories through a really old memory book written by me or my friends from Iraq, and I use it in this book. This is the only the last page of my zigzag book, which is as you see, is the plane going away from Iraq. And if I have the close look for this image, so you can, people who are familiar with some cartoons in Iraq, which is called Sandibel, which is at the top of this page, and as behind it is a fragile, because it's remind me of my childhood and teenage as well. And this cartoon was like a part of my ordinary life. And in Iraq, we didn't have the access to outside during the war. So we all locked down in the with the news of Iraq, whatever they want to address through the TV or something. So it's all down to the government to educate us or tell us what is happening, apart from the radio. So you still can hear some news outside from radio. And so this is it's an ordinary like book, and with full of information. People who is familiar with this, they can see the black like black square there, which is saying al-baqa lillah, so which is actually for us traveling is you going to next life, and you don't know if you're going to survive or not. So, and you leaving your family behind. And I've lost my father, and because of the war, and I couldn't see him. So I've lost him totally. And I couldn't even say bye to him because of the war. So he was killed there because of terrorist attack there. And this is, for me, is a tragic, you know, and I'm trying to capture an oral history from myself and the women I worked with to encourage them to talk about war, how is we survive in an ordinary artwork. Yeah. So so it's very emotional. So it's really for me is is the start for my journey. This exhibition is a start encouraging me to do artwork. And because of the brilliant team I work with, the IWAW team helped me to express myself in an artistic way. And I carried on doing this through the lockdown as well. Through the lockdown, I actually more into collage artwork. So I did a lot of collage artwork. And if I go to the page, the image, sorry, of the timeline image is more about this is the last also part of the timeline of the exhibition of ordinary things, where I discovered myself as an artist, surrounded by women from my country, based in Oxford, and a brilliant team, artist team, believed in me. They are not Iraqi, but they believed in the idea of how very important to keep the oral history and capture it and share with everyone in an artistic way. So this is the outcome of the exhibition, I guess, and celebrating at the end with everyone. And it's all through the lockdown, Diana. It's all happened through the lockdown.
Yes, I was talking to a historian who was saying she'd seen my artwork, and she was realizing that this was another way of recording people's experiences in war, because historians, this is one way that they record history, by listening to ordinary people's stories, which are usually documented. They're usually written down, or there might be a video, perhaps a recording. But to make artwork which tells stories that might otherwise just have been written down, it's a different way of getting people to engage. If you can sit and read an account of, I've read accounts of some of the refugees who made the same journey as my mother, but there's something about an artwork that you can get so involved in, that you can spend time with, and perhaps it's using your imagination. Perhaps with a written account, there isn't as much space for your own imagination. But this historian suggested, when she was looking at my cabbage patch piece, that there's so much room there for reimagining, for people to create their own narratives around this piece of artwork. They might be thinking about, so the children were actually getting some vitamin C from those cabbage leaves. I didn't say, I wasn't thinking that when I made the artwork, but yeah. Suddenly, yes, there's this space for making your own narrative and getting very involved in a piece of work. It's an interesting idea, does that happen if you're reading an account? Perhaps I don't think it does. I think, artworks where there's a lot presented to you that you can work with on your own. I really like that idea.
Yeah, I think it's for visual as well. And for me is I do read, but not really a lot. I like doing some art, so I feel comfortable. So I do art to calm me down. I think is kind of mental health as well, and well-being for myself. That's why I think I did starting doing art a lot through the lockdown. You are inside the house, you can't go out, and that's and everyone upset. Part of me, I think, no, I'm fine, I'm relaxed, I don't mind, I love Zoom, I'm meeting people online and things, because I'm doing the art. And I haven't realized that it's like you know, when you do the art, is helping the artist itself as well. Hopefully will encourage people to do art as well, or you know, explore, as you said, you know, your lovely cabbage. I love it. It's really a very special story, you know. It's, and then when you say it, it's like my you know, all this image come, like I can see the children crawling and eating. It's just amazing. It's very inspiring. It's like you, everyone can create their own view, and yeah. So it's important, I think, artwork. Yeah.
And I hope I was sort of doing that with the artwork that's my background here, the Kapitsovo labor camp. I think there's another picture of it as well that can be brought up without me sitting in front of it. Yes, I made this. This was my degree show piece at Oxford Brookes, because I was thinking about Polish culture and their culture before the war. So a little like you, Rana, and the work you did with your Iraqi women art and war participants, drawing on their experiences in Iraq before the war. In Poland, they have this tradition of making these cut paper pictures, really. They're very symmetrical. They're, if you think about the equivalent in our country, when you're a child, you fold paper and cut snowmen and then unfold the paper and you've got a row of snowmen. It's a Polish and an East European craft form. So I appropriated this art form, craft form, and told the story of the deportation. These are just 2 of the panels. I had 6 panels altogether. And instead of making them out of paper and cutting the paper, I used my computer, Adobe Illustrator, and then had the panels laser cut from Russian birch plywood. And then I lit them from the front and threw shadows onto the wall. But I know from my degree show exhibition, people came to see the artwork, not knowing originally what they were looking at. But it was very sort of pretty, a bit like a Harrods Christmas window, because they look, these cut out panels look a bit like toys. But when they read the wall text and realized what they were looking at, there was this whole other story. But again, a story unfolded in a very unthreatening way. There are no traumatic images here. There's nothing to disturb. There's nothing that's going to make people want to shut down and turn away. So, but yes, I did try and draw on Polish culture a little bit, on what they would have known before the war, part of their normality. And yes, I would like to make more work in this sort of vein.
It's really attractive, as you said. It's like for me, it's like Christmas time. I don't know, it's the tree, it's like, but then when you explained, it's completely different story. So it's again very interesting. It's kind of similar to the one I did as well. It's called the memory, you know, the memory, wall memory. It's very similar, I guess. Yeah, this one here.
Yes, because I was thinking of you when I was thinking about that particular, my artwork, and I was thinking about what I would say about it. I had been looking at the video on your website of this exhibition, The Wall of Memories. Yes, where you're the Iraqi women that you've been working with drew on their lives before and during the war to make this artwork. And there are some very moving things that they put in the little boxes, but I'll let you talk about that.
No, yeah, I'm glad you're interested as well. And I'm happy you found the the video as well, the film about it, interesting. Yeah, so this is actually, I did this with the women through the Zoom as well, and by capturing the story before the lockdown and my story as an Iraqi myself and my childhood. And I tried to put small boxes, really small boxes, with full of a memory of our ordinary life in Iraq before the war. I mean, sorry, during the war, we always in war. So it's like, but we lived the ordinary life. We lived with the parents, with our neighbors, with the friends. So still for us, I think it's ordinary, even if the war was there. But it's part of us. There is some boxes here showing some boxes showing the ordinary of the war, believe it or not. So there is a box, I called it is the dark room, because this is one of the ordinary things we have to hide. And in a dark room, when is the airplane come to attack, and so please explore my website for more details. But I think I have one box, close look, is for the childhood memory, which is I love. And it's more about the time of having a bath in Iraq, in my family house. And is if when it's coming now, you see it in a close look, how is really small the box. And there is the image of a small girl on the ceiling of it, watching this scene of having a bath, warm bath. And there is the heater behind. This is a very common heater, is called soba, the sopa al-Iraqiyya, and how is really the bath is very warm, very, very, and the smell of the soap, and it's really bring all the lovely memory with the family and the parents, how they take care of their children, and having this lovely time with the parents. So this is the boxes full of memories, really reflecting, I guess my story and other women's story quite similar. And it's just, capturing this and share here in Oxford, hopefully with everyone in the world, how is important to capture the war and the ordinary things of us as a women, or any whoever experienced war in an artistic way. And then we hopefully we open a discussion about why there is a war. What is the aim of the war? Is it helping or not? From World War I and II until now, what is this helping us? What do you think, Diana? I mean, is there any answer for this question? Because we have this question, a big question.
Yes, wars just go on. And I think after the Second World War, and after the images of the concentration camps, when they were liberated and the journalists went in, and there were lots of images of how the concentration camps were and what happened in them. And I think people were horrified, as they should rightly have been. And I think a lot of people then thought, well, that's never going to happen again, because that was just so horrific and so awful, that perhaps this is going to stop that from ever happening again. People are aware of how brutal some people can be towards other people. But then it's not so many years ago that in the former Yugoslavia, there were concentration camps, and the same images were being taken and broadcast of starving inmates in concentration camps. And my mother was still alive then, and I remember we were watching the television together, and we were watching people getting on trains with their possessions. And she said why? Why is it all happening again? It just seems that because you and I have talked about this a bit about, can art stop war? And clearly it's not stopping it, because after the First World War and after the Second World War, there was lots of art made as well as photographic images. There were artists who made work, and some of it was pretty horrific, but a lot of it wasn't. But it didn't stop war. I think one of the most important things to do is what you're trying to do now, where you're making images, people that you work with, your women in the Iraqi Women in Art and War group, they've been through these experiences. In a way, they're still going through them. And to make work which you can then exhibit, which people can see, it's keeping the whole issue alive, because the headlines move on. So we've had COVID and a lot of other things, and people forget that actually in the Middle East and Yemen, it's dreadful. Life there is just so hard. There's a war going on, so it's trying to keep it all in people's consciences and awareness, and helping them to get engaged, helping people to really understand what it's like, because you can see an image, you can read, but making artwork that can involve people in a way that they come away thinking, oh my goodness, is that what it's really like? Or giving an opportunity to actually feel what it's like, not just read at a distance and think, well, it's happening over there. I often use the idea of, I live in a village, a fairly big village, but I think, well, what would happen if foreign troops marched into Ensham, told everyone, just took people from their homes in Ensham, pushed them into cattle trucks, and said, we're deporting you, and not telling them where they were going. They had to leave everything behind or just take a few possessions. And then the awful thing, there are people in charge of you now, making decisions for you, who don't care about you. They don't care about you as a person. Your life is you have no control over your life anymore. It's all in the hands of hostile people. Because when my mother's family were deported, the Russian troops who came to their farm and took them away, they'd been told that the Polish people were enemies of the people, enemies of the Russian state, and they had to be deported. So that was that, really. Nobody then cared about them as human beings.
Very interesting, because what your mother experienced, and then she saw something on TV and she said, oh, why is it starting again? And that's it's happening to us as well. I mean, the media will tell you what is happening. In 2003, when it started the war in Iraq, and we were watching. I was outside of Iraq, abroad, and then I was watching what is happening in Iraq, and my heart was melting. I have my family, my parents there, my friends, my relatives over there, and we were in a conflict. Oh yes, we go to get rid from this regime, and also we're going to have a freedom and things, and actually it wasn't really planned. So people who did the war, they've ruined Iraq, and they destroyed us because of one president. And now the people seeing this president is a hero comparing with the people now in the regime. So I mean, it's very conflict messages coming from inside Iraq after 18 years and outside Iraq. Who is right? There is no one right. Anyone who likes the war they enjoy it, they benefit from it, their family benefit from it, but us as a citizen, like ordinary citizen, we suffered and we still suffering because we have families and we don't know what to do. We just we are praying for them and calling them and things, but I thought is I'm losing my identity as an Iraqi, and that's why I formed this group of women, which is very few of them based in Oxford, and I can't go everywhere and to bring, but thank God I found women who are really willing to be part of this project and supporting the idea of the artwork and talking about our life, but also highlighting the issue of why we're here, and who are we, and what is the barrier as well. So there is really a big things to highlight through this art. As you said, I have hint. I like politics, and all my artwork full of hints. Sometimes really hidden, so people need to look carefully and find this. I mean, if I can bring my my brain up here. So this is empowering women. This artwork started when I did a course called the Step Up course with the Outside In charity supporting artists with the barriers, and they're brilliant supporting us. So I did this, and then through this course, me and another brilliant artist, 5 artists, we formed a group called Flow Collective, and we started sharing between us our art and talk about encouraging each other. And I said, and we are just starting actually this year, as we started through the lockdown, and I thought I'm going to do the empowering women runner's brain collage artwork. And there is a lot of to find in this artwork. It's all my thought, my brain, and there is a small details how I was thinking, how it's changed, and who is in charge. So it's like a box, iron box, and there is an emperor at the top with the locks there, and there is actually the keys in the who's going to open this. So if you go to the close look, yeah, thank you. So this is a close look to my head here covered and my brain outside, with a lot of images. So the TV, here's the old TV, how I used to see the world through the news coming from the place where I used to live in Iraq, and the other eye covered with the screen face, and my house. I'm an archaeologist, so I put the skulls of old skulls of animals, and my mouth is covered with the image of astrolabe, because I work in a museum, so I'm interested in Islam collection. The astrolabe is, this astrolabe actually, you can go to the History of Science Museum and see this astrolabe, and at the top of this astrolabe there is a verses of Quran, which is we always memorize and we still saying it, and this is very old astrolabe, and the verses of Quran called Ayatul Kursi. So I always read Ayatul Kursi, and there is a prayer bead, so I always do the prayer, and a lot of things. So this is how I express myself in my art work and the collage. So, and it's full of details, so you can see the plane there because of the war, scary faces, and a lot of things. And to be honest, I did this with the women empowerment, the ladies, the artists who supported me during the lockdown, and we are now we call the Flow Collective, and you can see our work in Instagram as well. So there is this is brilliant for me, and I can't thank them enough for this encouragement, as well as the Iraqi Women Art and War team. They helped a lot to encourage me. They're always encouraging me, and I'm so pleased of this. Yeah, so this is my brain, Diana.
Well, it looks well worth exploring, Rana.
Lots of details.
Yeah, I think another similarity between our artwork is that it is made about just ordinary people, the experiences of ordinary people caught up in war. Actually, it's quite a while since people made any kind of work which glorified war, but we know we don't make artwork about soldiers and about that kind of warfare at all. It's about just the ordinary people who have no choice, who get swept up in this, and their stories, telling their stories. So yes, it is a very particular strand of, if you like, conflict art. It's it has nothing to do with any kind of showing strength of armies or anything like that. It's yes, those poor people who are caught up in it, who just have no say at all, who end up in the camps and with their lives completely ruined.
What is your plan for future?
I think I want to go on exploring how we can make work that does engage people, and that certainly that doesn't turn them away. So carrying on with my idea of making work that gives people the chance to think and reflect and feel and get closer to the experiences of people who have suffered and who are suffering, and perhaps then get moved in some way. It might even be a very small way, but in some way to help, to help stop it, by writing letters to MPs, to Parliament, to just there are small things that can be done, and if enough small things are done, then differences are made. So I think I want to carry on working in that way, with that sort of aim in mind, really.
Yes, yeah, that's brilliant.
And how about you? What are you thinking of into the future?
Yeah, so I want really to, same actually, to carry on, as well as not is to bring women power more, I guess, through art, and encouraging people who think art is not really something important we can use, or people who are hesitating to use their art skills somewhere hidden, because as I said, I just started in the first lockdown, and before I used to do some art, but not like this, and it's really helping, so mentally helping. And I will carry on doing this, my online workshop for artwork, and work with the women I have with me now, and we all help each other. And also I have a group in Iraq, women artists, women who are really, no one can they can't share their art because of the war, because of COVID-19, and I'm trying to support as much as I can them to bring their art live on my website, selling it, work with them, do an exhibition from an real Iraqi artist to bring it here as well, and work with the women here. So, just build bridges again between us keep our identity alive and share, integrating in both way with the British community and also English community and everyone. So yeah, I will carry on. My map is not finished yet, so I need to everywhere to people put their ideas inside the map, hopefully.
Yes, and I as you talk about your, your groups and the Iraqi Women Art and War group, I was trying to think about whether the refugees who ended up in the camps in Africa, so my mother's the people of my mother's story, some of them were artists and some of them did make some artwork, but not very many, and it was usually people who were artists already who then made some work about it. But the ordinary people didn't, as far as I know, make any artwork. But those women sewed. I remember my mother, and she certainly wasn't alone. Even before they had access to a sewing machine, they were, well, my mother's friend, her mother cut up a sheet to make her daughter a dress. At the end of all their horrific story, they had no clothes worth talking about, or horrible clothes. And but when there was the opportunity to make her daughter a dress, she cut up this sheet that they'd been given and sewed by hand to make her daughter a dress. And then in the refugee camps, they got sewing machines at some stage. And I think this was an outlet for creativity, though they probably didn't think they could make art, like so many people think, I'm not an artist, I can't draw, so I can't. But yes, there are so many ways to make art that it's so important to express yourself, like your women are telling their stories through art. Yes, they may not be fantastic artists, but they're telling their stories through creating images somehow. And it should be encouraged.
I mean, this is actually, I agree, because there is other skills, not, through the art, they will discover themselves, or they remember things they've done in their country. And it's just like giving them the hope again to build their confidence and use the brilliant skills they have again here. I mean, the barriers is English. So what? I don't need English in art.
No, that's a very good point. That's an excellent point. Yes, yeah.
Art is which you can use, and food as well. Love food. We love food. Yeah, I think the time is up, I guess.
Yes, I think so.
Thank you both. Not only was it wonderful to hear more about the process of you making work and where it comes from, but what I was really struck by, and I hope people would agree, is how much you've sought to engage with each other's work, how much you've enjoyed it as well. I mean, you've been working together for about a month now, having discussions, but that's really come across in the conversation you've been having, celebrating each other's work and obviously finding the commonalities, and I just really was very touched by that, and I hope that people not only learned about your work but saw what you've maybe got out of this by having this discussion together. So we're going to have a quick break now. If people can, I see there's already a question on the Q&A. We're going to run the slideshow. People can have a quick drink, stretch their legs, and we'll come back to you in a couple of minutes with some questions. And I hope I'll be able to put those to the speakers in the time we've got left. Thank you.
My name is Rana Ibrahim. I'm the founder for Iraqi Women Art and War Group, a project set up to bring Iraqi women voices via art. The idea of the group was like to meet like regularly once a month to do workshop. Through this art workshop, we get to know each other better, sharing stories. It's just listening to them.
I'm not going to paint it because I don't know. I'm not going to drink it because I don't know.
I'd go home and we'd do some with the children, and I'd tell them all the stories that they told me. And you know, my little girl would draw pictures of like superhero women, and I'd be like, yeah, that's it. That's who they are.
I hope most of us are back now, and you've been able to have a little break. We've got some questions, and I think I want to start with answering a question that I think I can answer before I direct to Rana and Diana. That was, how did the idea for this project / event come together, and will the artwork be displayed anywhere physically or online? The answer to that is that Diana's work, which I'd seen at her degree show at Brookes. When was that, Diana? What year? You're on mute.
It's probably about 5 years ago.
feels like a lifetime. Yes, but the work was so fresh, and it would transfer so wonderfully into the North Wall. So we had a Diana show planned for last April time, and of course COVID got in the way. And then February, it was due to be now to tie in with International Women's Day, and then COVID got in the way again. So you will have all seen from the last page that her show will be in the gallery, come hell or high water, in September. And we wanted to do an event to mark what would have been her show now. And it was wonderful through the Oxford International Women's Festival to be introduced to Rana. And it was really their idea to put Rana and Diana together for this event, for this wonderful discussion. We hadn't thought about putting the two of them together anywhere physically, but maybe that's a project for the future. And then I just wanted to give you some feedback as well, both Rana and Diana. It was just from someone to say, I want to say what a lovely conversation it was to witness, and wonderful to hear both brilliant women and see your work, especially during this week of celebrating women. And another attendee wanted to say what a wonderful talk it was, so inspiring. I'll let you look at the link later, but they were wondering if either of you had come across the Conflict Textiles Project, and the link is in the Q&A. The attendee was reminded of it by Diana's closing story about the sewing, and thinks you might both be interested. There's a question for both Rana and Diana from one person. Her comment first is about war. Tragically, oppressors are not necessarily foreign invaders, and I fear that homegrown dictators will continue to bully who they can. Art may not altogether prevent that, but it can subvert and mobilize opposition, and it is always a therapeutic form of expression. So she asks first to Rana, so I'll go to Rana first, where can we see the contents of your little boxes? And then to Diana, we'll follow with you. She asks, your exhibition, Such a Long Journey, sounds like your own journey is still in progress. So Rana, would you like to answer that question?
Yes, thank you very much for the comment and the question. So the exhibition, it's available online now. There is a short film on my YouTube channel, Iraqi Women, Art and War, about the Wall of the Memory, and the box is there. And also on my website, aw19.com. Hopefully, I think Nikki will share everything after as an email. So it's there is a page for the Of Ordinary Things exhibition on my website. I'm open to people who is interested to have the exhibition online on their platform. Also will be available hopefully with the Museum of Oxford when it's open in physically in I think in they open in spring or summer. I have a meeting soon with them, so to arrange this. Yeah, so the plan is now all online and physically when everything's back to normal after COVID-19. So I'm open for any suggestion as well. Thank you.
Diana, sorry, do you remember the question? I'm sure you
yes, something about my own journey.
It sounds like your journey still in progress.
Yes, it is. But I was interested in the idea of dictators and homegrown you know, what's happening within countries. Yes, Oxford Brookes did encourage us to be subversive in our art. Yeah, that's given me something to think about, the direction to go in. So, but yes.
Wonderful. There was another question, and maybe between you, you could answer it. It starts, war is so often driven by a male narrative. Is this part of why it is so important for the two of you to tell women's experiences and stories of war?
Yes, I think so. Especially, you know, all the art glorifying war, all those pictures from earlier centuries of armies on horseback galloping, wielding swords, and then cannons and cannon fire. It's all so male, and I know that was war in those days was mainly between armies. Civilians weren't caught up so much, though they probably starved. But of course they weren't bombed because there were no bombs then. But it's, yes, when you're looking at the ordinary people who suffer, and women and children suffering in war, their voices are now being heard. But yes, the sort of aggressive part of it does seem very male.
Yeah, I agree, Diana, and it's really important question. I think it's always because of the men, the women suffer. Always the dictators are the men. In my experience, I mean, in Iraq, who's leading us, it's always them, and they're always keen for war. I don't know what's wrong with them, but it's always like this. And women who are trying to survive with their families and the children and try to make a new path and life for everyone she lives with or surrounded. So I'm really unhappy with this. I mean, we need to be empowered more for women and do not just art. Really, it's be more stronger and lead the countries.
Sounds wonderful. I was just conscious that during the discussion there was somebody who had put their hand, they raised their hand, and I'm just putting it out there into the ether that if that person's wanted to ask a question, the time is now. So I'll recognize their name if they do post that question on the Q&A. Couple more questions. One for Diana. Hi, Diana. Your family's journey is sad, but also inspiring. Is there any chance you would write about it, possibly illustrating with your work? Would you write about it, possibly illustrating with your art?
Yeah, I've been asked about writing the story before, but I don't have enough detail. You know, my mother didn't want to talk about her experiences, like a lot of people who've been through these traumatic experiences. And I had to wait for her to tell a story. Once my brother and I did ask her if she would talk to us more, tell us some stories. And she did start telling us some. She just cried all those years later. You know, it was just so difficult for her. So there's a lot of detail that's missing. I would have to do a lot of research to bring out. And in the last, decade or so, couple of decades, a lot of memoirs have been, well, not a lot, but a number of memoirs have been written by people who did this journey. And also there are now some works of scholarship. So Norman Davis, a professor at the university, actually has researched these Polish history a great deal, and he's produced a very good book with about as many images as that exist about it. So I think I'll just continue to make work. I've got other stories that aren't my mother's. You know, I spoke to some of my mother's friends. But I'm not sure I'm ever going to write it down as a memoir or, yeah.
We must just direct that the gentleman who asked that question to the last slide. And just for everybody, everything that's on this last slide will be in a post-show email that will go out to you. You've attended. Thank you for joining us, with all the links to everything. And one of those is a wonderful podcast that Diana did with a modern history professor from Christchurch, Oxford, Dr. Kate LeBeau. And that piece that you'll listen to, and you can read the transcript if you don't want to listen to it, really talks about Diana's story in quite a lot of detail, doesn't it, Diana? So
Yes,
if you want to know more and almost match the words to the images, say, on your website, then that can certainly be done. Rana, the last question, I think, or maybe second last question, I wanted to direct to you. It's a very interesting perspective from one attendee. Online wargaming perpetuates masculine, aggressive viewpoints and focuses on the action, whereas your work focuses on the everyday, the ordinary, the people swept up. Might either of you do some art in the future which actively tries to take on that online gaming phenomenon, which is teaching our children to find war so exciting?
That's a really interesting point. Yes.
Diana.
Yes, I wonder if something could be done there. Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I think the collage artwork is kind of building a story. So putting them together will, do something. I mean, it's like a short film or a game, or and encourage the new generation actually to capture their story as well, and learn from the story before through the collage artwork. For me, nobody teach me what is collage. I just put some things and I put my mind on, and then I start building the story and layers. So the collage is really layers, and you keep adding until you think that's it. So like the one behind me it took me like more than 10 days to do. It's about Black Lives Matter, and it's very recent, happened through the lockdown, and I want to highlight my opinion through this, and I link it with Palestine, with Arab, with the war, so it's all lives matter, but with what is happening recently about a big protest against the problem with the Floyd happened, I mean, unfortunately, and this is bring story. And this is really all oral history. So we need to do that. We need to carry on capturing this and keep it for a new generation to learn about us when we are not here. I don't know a lot about things before for my grandfather, mother, and before, because it's all written, but with the images, it's more capturing for me, for visual artists for me. Yeah.
Thank you both. I just wanted to say something because I think we're wrapping up. I'm actually going to, in a minute, wrap up with, it's not a question that this attendee's asked, it's something she said, and it's just a perfect ending. So I'm going to leave that to the side for a minute. But I think I just wanted to say that what I was struck by with both of your work is how you were celebrating the resilience of women. I think, yes, they are stories about war and the way that you're choosing to deal with them, but I think it is a celebration in a way as well. And I found that very moving. But also, I think, Rana, you said it was about cementing identity, as an Iraqi, Diana, for you, tapping into, what it means for you to be Polish. I mean, I know you're not 100% Polish, but your heritage, your history, and so those are almost benefits to projects that otherwise deal with such big issues. So I really think that it's been very interesting, and thank you both so much. So I'm going to end with this comment. It says, these human stories through art are just so important to help more people understand the dire ongoing consequences of war for ordinary people. exhibitions via Zoom also give more people the opportunity to learn. So a huge thank you to Rana and Diana for sharing so movingly tonight, and the festival for hosting this topic this evening. I don't think there's anything more to say. Thank you all for joining us, and please engage with both Rana and Diana through the post-show email. Their email addresses are on there. They'd love you to contact them, give them feedback, ask them questions after the event. Please come to their shows later this year, and we hope to see you at one of the North Wall webinars again soon. Thank you.
Thank you
very much.